Hello and welcome to Starside Cafe. Today we're taking a look at Red Dead Online, and right now it's not great. It's kind of like Sea of Thieves when it first launched, which is to say there isn't a lot to do, and what is there is kind of repetitive and not particularly interesting, but worse than that is the griefers. Now, maybe that's a bit disingenuous. There are story missions that you can play in co-op that are fairly interesting because there are cutscenes and some sort of story playing out, but there's not very many of them, and once you're done with those, the offerings thin out pretty quickly. There are stranger missions that are probably the next best thing to the story missions, but you can play them solo. There are short side missions that include objectives like hunting, retrieval, mail delivery, escort missions, and assassinations. Some of these give negative karma and some grant positive karma, so if you're looking to be good, you'll have to read the description on the map so you know what you're in for before you bother traveling across the map to it. The problem with these is that they feel pretty repetitive after a while and they can be quite boring. In fact, it's likely they were designed this way on purpose because they're expecting you to have to defend yourself against other players. And that might sound kind of fun at first, but it's not. Because the mission either ends up being a disaster because another player comes along to force an impromptu round of 1v1 PvP, causing you to run out of time and fail your objective, or they repeatedly kill you because they have better weapons so they'll easily steal your mission and rewards right out from under you, or it goes off without a hitch and you don't encounter any other players along the way. I'm not a fan of either. There's also some nitpicky stuff, like the fact that when you first spawn into an area, when you whistle for your horse, for whatever reason, it just can't spawn in that location, so you have to run to an area where it can spawn, and even then it spawns like a mile away and is super slow to run over to you. And there's the morality system that pretty much always gives you negative karma for killing anyone, whether it's an NPC or other players. Even if you're just defending yourself or trying to get revenge on a player who keeps killing you, it doesn't make a lot of sense why you get negative karma some of the time. Then there's all the stuff Rockstar stripped out of Red Dead Online, like being able to break wild horses to either keep or sell at stables, or the sheriff's bounty board where you can go accept missions to bring in wanted criminals dead or alive, or being able to hunt legendary animals, or at the very least take pelts to fences to craft trinkets, the camp cook to craft upgrades for the camp, or the trapper to craft unique outfits. The lack of these things makes it so that the only reward for hunting and fishing is XP and money, but to me hunting and fishing isn't particularly interesting, so it's not really worth grinding unless I can get something interesting out of it. And the fact that it would take such a long time to grind enough animal pelts and carcasses returned to the butcher in order to make a decent amount of money, and the fact that another player could just come along and mess it all up for me at any time, just kind of gives me the sense that the game isn't really valuing my time. Rockstar has already made an update to the economy to bring down the cost of some of the purchasable items, and has a support page where you can send requests and other such feedback. They've also announced additional modes and features are in the works, but Red Dead Online is still far from having a compelling feature set. One mode that would help things is a PvE free roam option or some kind of passive mode, because right now there are dedicated PvP modes you can enter, but that doesn't stop people from playing free roam like it's one big round of PvP, even if half the people in the session weren't looking for a fight. And you have to be killed at least 3 times by a player before it gives you the option to use the parlay feature to avoid being killed by them again. Right now, Reddit and YouTube has a bunch of people who want to get into this game but are stuck trying to figure out methods for dealing with griefers. Having a PvE option would alleviate this, but in order to make a PvE free roam work, they'd have to make stranger missions more interesting and introduce free roam events that can be completed cooperatively. Right now, all the free roam events are glorified PvP modes. So adding something like defend the town from waves of raiders, or capture the outlaw, or eliminate the gang hideout would be fun things to do cooperatively with other online players. When it comes down to it, you're either grinding very repetitive free roam events or stranger missions for money and XP, and you're putting up with griefers as best you can, or you're grinding PvP playlists, of which surprisingly the horse races are the most fun. One of the core issues with Red Dead Online is the fact that so much of it is based on combat with other players. It's one thing to have combat against AI, but if it's going to be against other online players, the combat needs to be really strong, and the truth is combat isn't one of Rockstar's strong suits. This is one of the few games I know of where it's generally accepted by everyone that the best way to play it is to heavily alter the sensitivity and auto-aim settings. But auto-aim is typically considered a bad thing when it comes to competitive online shooters, but you need it in this game because the controls are pretty bad without it. In fact, their fix for the bad shooter controls in the single player is to give you dead eyes so you can basically hit pause on the game and slowly line up headshots, but obviously they can't let you do that in an online mode. Granted, this game is still considered a beta and support is ongoing, but right now it's very underwhelming. There is so much potential not being tapped here. Red Dead Online free roam could be Destiny Light. The free roam could amount to patrol spaces with a variety of activities to do, and then they could have PvP and co-op playlists. And it could get there eventually, but if GTA Online is the yardstick for a Rockstar Online game, they still haven't offered PvE free roam in that game, so it's probably wishful thinking that it'll ever happen in Red Dead Online. I'll revisit it if it ever does, but I have very little interest in such a stripped down online that forces constant PvP. And now joining me to ask some questions about Red Dead Online is my co-host Aaron Capo.
Hello!
So, what do you think about all this?
So I just watched the first part of your video, very informative, very well put together. I do have a couple of questions. I have played 0% of this, and you are pretty well versed. My first question is, so you mentioned the Deadeye system. I haven't seen really any footage. How did they use the Deadeye system in multiplayer?
So there are cards that I'm not going to be real good at explaining because I haven't dove too deep into that yet, but they're like skill cards basically. And I think the one that I have, you can power them up as you level up. But I think the one that I have is basically whenever you activate it, your like health regenerates a little bit. It also like makes it so that your gun aim is like you don't have to wait for the little circle to close in. You know what I mean?
So you have different cards that make your Deadeye do different things?
Yeah, there are some different ones. I don't remember what the other ones are, but it's this whole like semi-RPG system that doesn't really, I don't know, it doesn't have a whole lot of an effect on it, I don't think.
Well, so that was my next question, is how are cards like consumable? Are you using a card and then it eventually wears off, so you have to just keep collecting them?
No, they're like passive effects.
Oh, so it's kind of like Fallout 76 a little bit.
A little bit. That's actually a good comparison because it's another one of the games kind of like Sea of Thieves where it's like always online and you can always be in PvP, but you have like little missions that you're doing and everything.
Mm-hmm. This seems half-baked to me.
It is. I feel like all of these modes are pretty half-baked. But the thing is, they've like had this type of an online mode before. Obviously, they have one with GTA Online, and I think there was a Red Dead Online before with the first one.
I don't remember. But I mean, GTA Online is so robust because it's set in the modern day, and this, like people log into GTA Online just to like mess around and like do crazy stunts with their friends, whereas this, like, it's like you were saying, there pretty much only is PvP, it seems like.
Yeah, it basically is just always PvP all the time in free roam or in any of the PvP modes. And I think people generally do want PvE free roam.
Yeah.
But the thing is, in order to have a PvE free roam, which I already kind of mentioned earlier, is that you would need to basically change pretty much all the free roam events and add like cooperative stuff, and like you'd have to change the nature of the stranger missions as well, just because they are so dependent on having other players come attack you, because they're just not exciting at all if somebody doesn't come in and attack you. But if somebody does come attack you, like, it's not fun to me because they basically will ruin everything.
Yeah, the ideal would be if the online portion of this was like Destiny Light, or you were talking about like if it was like almost The Division, because with The Division there was such a beautiful New York City to explore. It was fun to just go and walk around with the high fidelity environment. And this, like, the benefit of Red Dead is this like beautiful world, but it seems like they have taken out a lot of it. Like, you can't even find, like, I don't know, hunting is not super interesting to me in this.
Yeah, I mean, hunting's not super interesting to me in the main game as well, like in the single player. But like, think of that, but on top of it, some random player can just come along and kill you at any point and like steal the thing that you've been hunting.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
Right? I feel like nobody wants that, but I guess that's what they've built their free roam around. I don't know why that's appealing to people, but people keep making games like that. Like, there's this game, there's Sea of Thieves and Fallout 76.
Here's a question. Because in the video we were watching, you just fell on your horse. Your horse is very fragile in the main game. What's to stop someone from just, like, shooting your horse in the head? Like, do you have to then find a new horse?
Well, your horse can die, but and then you'd, I guess, be without a horse until you just, like, found another one or bought another one. But there's no, like, permadeath for your horse. So, like, if you
interesting.
loaded a different server or whatever, your horse would be alive again.
Can you buy different horses, or are you always leveling up the same horse that has no permadeath?
Yeah, you can buy multiple horses. You're given one in like the first or second story mission, and then after that you can buy additional ones. And I think if you pre-ordered, you get one of the Arabians actually.
Oh.
So it was confusing to me how that worked at first, because you do have to like actually put a saddle on the horse if you want to make it active. And it wasn't really clear to me why I couldn't make a horse active, and until I realized that you had to actually like press a button when you're looking at your saddle to like equip it on a horse. I was looking at the horse and saying, well, why is this button grayed out? It was because I was trying to do the thing in the wrong order. Like, it wasn't giving me the option I wanted until I looked at it in the exact order I was supposed to.
So to me, this seems like a sort of just wait for it to get good kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, like No Man's Sky, or I'm assuming Fallout 76 and Sea of Thieves, like, given enough time and updates and additional add-on content, like, it will probably be a pretty good game, and it'll probably be fun to play, but you're going to have to wait for that to happen.
Well, maybe we'll revisit it when that happens.
Yeah, that's basically the conclusion I've come to, is that I'm gonna have to wait and see until they add on enough stuff to make it worth jumping back into.
Well, look forward to a video from us if that happens.
Yeah, like probably a year from now. Anyway, let us know what you thought of Red Dead Online, and we'll catch you on the next one.
See ya!